I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:21 p.m. Let's start with our roll call, please, Erica.
Giselle Ragusa.
Here.
Bill Stewart.
Here.
Natalie Weber.
Here.
Mary Soldato.
Okay, go ahead.
Here.
Joseph Wong.
Here.
Julie Chetney.
Here.
Trish Gonzalez.
Here.
Pretty Subramaniam.
Here.
Susan Strobel.
Here.
Wendy Lai.
Here.
Bruce Crickshank.
Here.
Jay Dixit.
Here.
And Karen Sarsa Diaz-Sykes.
Here.
Everybody's here. You have a quorum.
Yippee! Happy 2022, almost 2023. And again, welcome everybody to our last 2022 meeting of the year. And happy holidays to all as we go into the season with some chipper weather for Southern California, amazingly. And a little bit of rain, which will help us. Not today, but throughout the past week we have. So I'm very excited to be with you. We missed you all last month as we had staggered meetings and only the Executive Finance Committee of the Board of Directors met rather than the board. So we have a very packed agenda this evening. So I'm going to get started right away. Let's review our agenda and see if there are any changes to that agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to our approval of the minutes. You had them in your review packet. So do we have any changes or adjustments to the minutes for October 26, 2022? You'll recall we had a couple of training items that month. Hearing and seeing none change, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written for October 26?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. Any other discussion to the minutes before we call for a vote? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
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 Any opposition to those minute approval? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Thank you.
I abstain too.
Yes, you were absent. Thank you so much, Preeti and Trish. Motion carries. All right. It's time for general public input. As I know that we have three individuals who will be providing public input this evening. And the first one is Mr. Carl Argila. So the floor is yours, Carl.
Okay, thank you. May I ask if I'm audible?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Great, thank you. My name is Carl Argila. I am the father of Kevin Argila, an intellectually disabled deaf client of the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. Tonight's Regional Center Board meeting, including my comments, are being recorded under the provisions of the Bagley-Keene Act and will be posted for public review on my blog at www.sgprc.net. And that URL is in the chat available for you. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Jesse Weller for taking the time to meet with me last December 9th. For about an hour, I briefed Dr. Weller about the history of our family conflict with the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. I explained to Dr. Weller how in 2001, our family was welcomed into the SGPRC community as your only deaf vendor. And subsequently, 14 years later, our family vendorization was terminated, resulting in the destruction of my two children's lives. I explained to Dr. Weller how my son, Kevin Argila, for example, became homeless for 13 months while this agency paid their vendor $10,000 per month for my son's care. It was a pleasure and an honor to meet with Dr. Weller. Dr. Weller was gracious and clearly concerned about our family situation. However, actions speak louder than words. I asked Dr. Weller to terminate this agency's conservatorship of my son, Kevin Argila, and I hope that that will happen very, very soon. As the board is aware, on June 8th of 2021, the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center became my son Kevin's conservator after a 3.5-year probate court action against me. I allege that this action was an act of retaliation against me by your former executive director, Mr. Keith Penman. My son, now living the life of an institutionalized person, he is denied the love and freedom which he enjoyed when he was receiving family-provided care for 14 years. My son has made numerous requests that this conservatorship be terminated. I'm requesting that the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center terminate their conservatorship of my son, Kevin Argila. I'm requesting that the official minutes of this board meeting accurately state that I am requesting that the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center terminate their conservatorship of my son, Kevin Argila. So once again, board, I am requesting that you terminate your conservatorship of my son, Kevin Argila. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Carl. The next public input is from Mr. Albert Feliciano from State Council on Developmental Disabilities. Albert, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, President Ragusa. Thank you for this time. Good evening, board members, Dr. Weller, SGPRC staff, and members of the public. I thank you for this time. And I do have 3 announcements that I would like to give. The first is that SCDD LA office will resume its statewide trainings on Mondays starting January the 9th. That training will be scheduled actually for 10 a.m. in English. I did actually send the flyers to Erica, as she was so kind to add to the materials for today's meeting. So thank you, Erica, for that. If anyone would like to access those flyers, they are in the training materials. You'll find an overall annual training calendar, and you'll find the trainings for January and February of 2023. So those trainings are open to anyone all across the state. The flyers do have the Zoom info. The Zoom info remains the same for all trainings. Again, those are scheduled every Monday starting January the 9th, 2023. That first training will be in English, followed by the next training, which will be in Spanish, the same topic. The second announcement is that SCDD has resumed its self-determination program orientation, and those are being conducted virtually. So if you want to sign up for one of these SDP orientations, please visit our website at scdd.ca.gov, and it'll be /SDP -orientation /. So if you go to our main website, you'll see a tab there that will take you to our trainings, and that's available in various languages, English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and I believe there's additional languages that have been added. So this orientation does count towards the required orientation for individuals to transition into SDP. And the last announcement is that SCD does continue to look for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and family members to serve in our councils. We do have 3 councils. We have the SCDD Council, we have the Regional Advisory Committee, also known as the RAC, and the Self-Determination Local Advisory Committee. And we do have a vacancy for St. Gabriel Pomona Regional Center LVAC. There is 1 vacancy for an SCDD appointed member. So if you know anyone that's interested in applying for this vacancy, guide them to our SCDD website, or they can contact me. I'll put my info in the chat, and I can guide that individual on applying for that vacancy. And that's it on my part, and just wishing you all happy holidays. Thank you, President Ragusa, for this time.
Thank you so very much. Okay, we do have one more individual who is has signed up for public input, and that is Miss Louise Weber. Louise, you're with us. The floor is yours.
Hi, thanks. Try to make it very short. It's probably not a very big thing, but it is a frustrating experience. And trying to communicate with regional center. As you probably know, there's a lot of turnover for service coordinators, and so I tried to get information on the latest coordinator for my daughter. Was given not good information. Once I got through to regional center, which took a couple of days, I was given the wrong information for the email. So I emailed the issue to the service coordinator, never responded. Evidently, it was the wrong email I was given. My daughter's agency also tried to communicate that same thing to her service coordinator, but she had the penultimate one, because nobody had ever communicated that there had been a change. So it's sort of a comedy of miscommunication. You know better your system and your procedures than I do, but it seems like my lack of specific knowledge it all depended on me. And I wasn't getting any information, and I'm not used to that from regional center. They're much more responsive. So I don't know if there anything that could be tweaked, but I just thought I'd let you know that maybe something needs to be tweaked. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Louise.
By the way, I'm Tuma, and this is Tina. Hi, this is Tina. I'm on my phone again. Tina, right.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Appreciate it. Letting us know that you're on the phone. Thank you so much, Mrs. Weber. All right, that concludes our public input. We're going to move on to Executive Finance Committee with the beginning with report from our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Dara Mikesell. Dara, the floor is yours.
Good evening, President Ragusa, board members, regional center staff, and attendees. I'm going to share my screen with you. Oops. May I have screen sharing capabilities?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. As you will see, this is our operations budget. And this is the budget for, this is our financial report, and this is for November 22nd. In the regional center operations, our allocation is based on the D1 amendment and is expected to meet expenditure projections. And then projections include ongoing operating expenses and any outstanding encumbrances and purchase orders. Our D1 allocation for fiscal year 22-23 is currently at 43.5 million with projected expenditures of 42. Our year-to-date expenditures is about 11 million with projected remaining expenditures of about 30 million. This leaves about 1.5 at this point unencumbered, but our plan is to increase our hiring of service coordinators, and so we project to use that 1.5 that is currently listed as unencumbered. As mentioned in the past, the Family Resource Center, Foster Grandparent Senior Companion combined are about 1.5 million, which have been allocated and are expected to spend that full amount. In terms of our CPP and DC ongoing workload operations, we were only allocated the 50% in the D1 amendment, and so the remaining 50% is expected in the D2 amendment. So while it is showing a deficit, as you will see here, in the restricted ops funds, we are confident this amount will be reduced with the D2 allocation. And does anyone have any questions regarding our operations?
Yeah, I have a question, Tara.
Yes.
What do you mean by unencumbered?
So unencumbered means that as of right now, we don't have, we haven't allocated those funds. So it hasn't, most of what we have is projected for the rest of the year, but right now those funds are not a part of that projection. So as we continue to hire, those funds will be encumbered.
Okay. So right now the funds aren't necessarily directed anywhere. They can be used for whatever we choose to use them for?
Correct, but it will most likely be used for staffing.
Okay.
Most of it will be used for staffing.
Okay.
Any other questions in our for our operations?
No.
So let me move on to our POS section. And here is our POS, our purchase of service. The total allocation in the D1 is about 377 million. The current month's expenditures is about 26 million. And there is a projected unencumbered amount in POS of about 29.8 million. Be mindful too that we have a rate model implementation in January that's coming up. And while we can project for that, it's not a perfect number. So we expect this to be reduced with some of those funds for the rate model implementation in January. Okay, any questions in terms of POS? Okay, I'm going to move on to, this is a statement of our financial position. And this is the details in both our, from both our operations and our POS. Are there any questions? These financial reports are submitted for your review and approval.
Thank you, Dara. Do I have a motion to approve the financial reports as presented by our CFO?
I move that we approve the financial report.
Thank you, Bruce. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Chris. Any other discussion related to the financial reports before we move to a vote? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of approving the financial reports presented by our CFO, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any opposition to the approval of the financial reports? Any abstentions to the approval of financial reports? Thank you, Susan. Okay, great. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, under Executive Finance Committee, are a set of 3 contracts that are also in your board materials for the month. You've had some time to review them. They were also reviewed by the Executive Finance Committee last month, and we voted to send them forward to you for review and approval by the full board. And Lucina and her colleagues will be presenting those. Lucina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good evening, board members, community, and staff. Wanted to present 3 contracts which have been already presented as Giselle, Gigi mentioned earlier. The first one is social locational services. This is a transportation contract. It's actually considered an additional component of the day program under Service Code 880. Social locational services has been one of our day programs that provides their own transportation. They've been with us for a long time, at least 25 years, I'm going to say. They use vans to transport individuals. Typically, their vans are 6 capacity. They have several programs in our area: Pomona, Irwindale, City of Industry, Diamond Bar, Claremont. And so they're a fairly large day program provider that has a transportation component. So based on that, their contract will
Oops, you muted yourself.
I know I do that all the time. Sorry. Because they're large and the number of individuals they transport, they're going to exceed the $250,000 mark through this contract. So that is the first contract I'd like for you to review and approve.
We have questions related to social vocation. SV.
Yes. It's an acronym.
Yes. Any questions or comments regarding that contract in your packet?
Yeah, Lucina, SVS is known for being able to access funds by doing their own things like transportation. I remember, maybe 10 years ago, they made the front page of the LA Times in an article stating that Ed Dawson, who runs SVS, owns it, and it was making a lot of money. Nothing wrong with that. The regional centers are happy with the services they get. But is SVS still doing everything itself to access the income streams? Do you know?
I don't know about that. Our relationship with our programs in our area is just about day program services. They also do supported employment for us as well. Find jobs for people and their day programs. Their day program rate and the transportation component rate is not much higher than any of the other programs that we have in our area. And with the rate adjustment model that was initiated in April of 2022, that will also have a rate increase in January. The system is trying to equalize the rates for day programs, transportation companies, so that they can be equal. And so that's what our Burns and Associates rate model implementation is going to be doing. So I don't know about the other stuff, Bruce. I just know that in our area, we don't have any issues with our several SVS programs.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions related to the SVS contract?
No.
Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the contract as presented by Lucina?
I'll make the motion to approve the contract as presented.
Okay.
How much? How about a second? Mary seconding. I see Mary's hand. Thank you, Mary. Any other comments associated before we move to the vote? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the SVS contract as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposition to that contract? Any abstentions to that contract? Thank you, Susan. All right, motion carries. The next contract is will be presented by Lucina as well.
Thank you. The next contract is Total Care Tonopah Residents. This is a 4-bed facility where the provider has been in our system for quite a while. It is a specialized residential facility. They have a daily rate of $445.51 per resident per day. And so based on that amount, they will pass the threshold of $250,000 for this, for their contract period.
Do we have any questions associated to the Tonopah contract? Hearing or seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the contract as written and presented?
I move we approve the contract.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Do I have?
A second.
Thank you, Mary. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition to the Tonopah contract as presented? Any abstentions? Thank you, Susan. Motion carries. Last but not least, we have the unlimited potential SLS contract. Lucina, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Unlimited Potential is one of our supported living providers. They are, of course, originally out of Inland Regional Center, but we utilize their services, especially because we border the western part of Inland's catchment area. Unlimited Potential has been providing services to our individuals, our adults, I'm going to say probably 30 years is what I'm going to say at least. And so they're a very good provider for us. They have a training rate. They have an evaluation rate around $39.30. They have a personal support rate of $34.99. And then they have an overnight rate of $24.06. And so they serve a lot of individuals in our catchment area. And based on that, they will surpass the threshold of $250,000 for their contract period.
Thank you, Lucina. Any questions related to the unlimited potential SLS contract, please ask, sorry. Any questions?
No.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the contract as presented? That's the unlimited potential contract.
I approve it.
Mary's not, Terry. Sorry, Mary is.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who is that?
Tina.
Oh, Tina, you can't yet second. We have to wait. I'm sorry.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Thank you, Trish. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition to the unlimited potential contract? Any abstentions to that contract? Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Lucina, for the presentation of the 3 contracts. Now we're going to move on to the committee reports. The first committee report will be the Community Relations Legislative Advisory Committee of the Board. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you. During our meeting, Argila, transition liaison for kindergarten and school-age children, did a short presentation regarding helping children transition from regional center to one of 23 school districts our regional center work with. She also working with Help Me Grow First 5. She mentioned about doing a research project with CHLA, and Sal did an update on First 5 grant. Tiffany and Luz did a presentation about language access cultural competency, and it will oversee language and cultural assessment within Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, Tagalog, African American, deaf and hard of hearing, LGBTQ+. Currently, our regional center serve about 15,213 individuals. 10% will be Asian and 5% African American and 2% Filipino. In terms of language, English is 72.5%, Spanish 21%, Asian 5%, Mandarin 2.1%, Cantonese 1.3%. Out of the $300,000 total interpretation service budget, $121,000 goes into translation from document service, $36,000 assessment and discovery, $3,600 staff training, $15,782 data analysis. They also talk about the targeted needs of hosting listening session and survey, ID community partnership and trainer, providing training, collaborate with community partners, and under language access will be ID interpretation and translation, collaborate with bilingual and bicultural, coordinate, streamline, and implement quality control, ID virtual document and internet website, review language and cultural data provided. Sal talk about language access cultural competency, LA mental health training, and parent mentor initiative. Amos talked about Will Shut Up and Foundation for Disabled Youth and Parents Place. And he also doing a 2-year database project with CHLA research team. And our ED, Jesse, talked about the Little Hoover Commission update. He also talked about, wrong page, sorry. The AB 2216 is the ABLE account, AB 2242, mental health service, AB 2511, skilled nursing facility, backup power source, and California Down Syndrome Awareness Week and Days, or Autism Awareness Day. And we also talk about the public health update, the LA County Public Health testing for health care worker, LA County Public Health mask requirement in public transit, and the AB 152 COVID-19 supplemental pay benefit, pay sick leave. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you much, Joseph. Our next committee report will be for the Advisory Committee for Individuals Served in Their Families, co-chaired by Preeti Subramanian and Wendy Lai. Do you have a brief report?
Wendy,
this evening's meeting?
Wendy, can you
Sure,
take it from here,
will do.
please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ragosa. Good evening, Executive Director Weller, all area executive managers, fellow board members, and community members. I am representing the Committee for Individual Serves and the Family, and the report that we have this evening is that we learned information from the Transition Service Unit this evening, headed by Director Rosa Chavez, and she brought along her team of 3 managers, areas Unit 1, 2, and 3. They all gave a very thorough report on the overview of the goals of the services, as well as breaking down different areas of services. At the end of the presentation, there was a member who asked 2 specific questions that I would like to share. The first question was about the crisis intervention, which was mentioned as part of the service from the transitional team. And by the way, the transitional unit serves our clients ages 13 to 23. But we do have a few clients who are 25 due to various circumstances. So the first question was the crisis intervention that they wanted to learn more, as well as the second comment was the comment that reminded me of something that I heard a little earlier during the week over at the Little Hoover Commission hearing, which somebody had talked about how as parents, we go to the IPP every year and we want to know what service will be available for our children or for our clients. And oftentimes there isn't a menu because then we're asked, so what do you want? And then we're like, well, what do you have? No, what do your children want? So there's all this circle and it's very overwhelming for parents. So that was the second question. So here the following are the responses that we learned this evening. The first, in terms of the crisis intervention, the answer is threefold. The first one is the regional center had contracted with a few vendors to meet those needs of emergency responses, one of which is the community navigation services, which basically walk us through the various generic resources that's available to us parents, as well as we at the regional center have the BBCC team, which is the Biobehavioral Consulting Committee, in which they address our needs, our clients' needs in terms of behavior as well as medication management, as well as there's on the team various professionals that are available to contribute their either referral or their expertise. And finally, we have the general 24/7 response emergency number at the regional center, just for any even off hours needs that we may have that we need to contact someone. And the regional center has a whole team with the director of the month meeting those needs that if we need to call and utilize that service. So that's the crisis intervention. To the second part of the overwhelming parents, and this is where the responses were one where we are really working in consort together, the regional center, in meeting those needs. And in particular, there is, especially I think Executive Director Weller stepped in and talked about how DDS is providing funding and programs to have our staff at the regional center to meet the parents' need more so in terms of the caseload decrease. For example, in the early start, it used to be much higher, but now it's 1 to 40. As well as the enhanced service coordination, which are for those individuals who may not be obtaining the POS as much as they should, or the services that they need in caseload of 1 to 25. So the bottom line is we are really encouraging staff at the regional centers, especially on-the-ground personnel, service coordinator, to be in touch with our clients more often instead of just doing once a year, perhaps to give them a call even just as the need arise. And then the second half of our meeting, all the area executive managers gave us a report, an update. For example, the self-determination program, it was reported that we successfully was able to transition 97 families to self-determination. We also have some issue with the FMS, which that was a difficulty for a lot of the families at the self-determination program, but the DDS is stepping in to give us some training, as well as coming up the electronic verification system that's being implemented, and there's training coming along the pipeline that we need to be watching out for. We also have the waiting room, as well as the meet and greet on Tuesday that the self-determination program families should be aware of and take advantage of. We also have heard about the Office of Ombudsman, which began December 1st, and it is an office where we could lodge our, needs of complaint and to solve and to seek resolution. And then it was reported also the Taylor Day program services, which in the past cannot be in combination with day program. Now it can be, as long as it's not in the same day. Let's see. Anything else? I think those are some of the major information that we obtained tonight from our committee meetings in terms of the family, individual served and their family. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Wendy and Preeti. The next committee report will come from the Vendor Advisory Committee, whose chair is Susan Strobel. Susan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just to give you a brief update on what's going on with the vendors, they're continuing. I know this sounds like a broken record, but we're continuing to have struggles with hiring qualified individuals and retaining them due to the pay rates. So the increases that are coming down the pike are critically important. We also feel like we need to do a better job of introducing younger people in the community to individuals with disabilities and the wonderful opportunity it is for them in terms of employment. We feel like a lot of our vendor community is getting older and we don't see young ones coming up behind us. So that is an issue that we're trying to think about and figure out how we can get involved with the trade schools and try to promote our programs and people in those communities. There's concerns about the end of the emergency services. We have a lot of, as you know, that those services are all ending at the end of December and services need to go live in January. However, day programs are short-staffed. There's a shortage of transportation. So especially the people, the programs, the independent or the living programs are concerned about what are their people going to do at the beginning of the year if they can't get transportation or if they can't get to a day program. I know Lucy had a meeting with them today. Sorry I wasn't there, Lucy. My internet was down, but I know you met with them today and hopefully quelled some of the concerns because I think people are feeling anxious about that. And of course, we continue to be really keeping an eye on what's happening with COVID and how it's affecting the individuals in our community as well as staff. Finally, the home and community-based service compliance trainings are coming up in the new year. We've got 3 really exciting trainings, one on person-centered planning, one on building communities of practice, and also one on being a good communication partner for people who are hyperverbal or nonverbal. So if any of the family members who are on today, please ask the programs working with your children if they are going to attend those trainings because it's a little bit of a commitment of time and some commitment of learning. But we believe that with these trainings, our vendor community can serve individuals better and more efficiently and with more expertise. So please encourage all the programs you communicate with to participate in those upcoming trainings. And that is all I have. Thank you, Gigi.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Susan.
Okay, the next committee report in our final committee report is the Strategic Development Advisory Committee. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Tonight, I have a very brief update that our committee continues to work with a hired consultant on the strategic planning that we are starting to engage in for the SGPRC. And 2 action items tonight is our committee doubles as the nominating committee for this regional center. And we have completed a couple of interviews for those who are currently on committees. And we are now recommending for full membership at the board level. So first on the docket tonight is our committee is recommending Richard Centeno for board membership. He is a current member of the advisory committee for individuals served and their families. So after an interview, our committee is unanimous in recommending him for membership to the board. So tonight, we're asking for a vote. Isn't that correct, Gigi?
That is correct.
Wonderful.
Okay. Let's first vote for Richard and then we'll move on to.
Absolutely, we will. Okay, so do I have a motion for someone to recommend Richard Centeno for membership to the board?
I'll make the motion to recommend Richard Centeno for board membership.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
I will second that motion. Oh,
thank you. I saw Trish first. Thank you so much. Do we have any discussion on that?
How long has Richard been on his committee? How long has he been serving on his committee?
For at least 6 months, Bruce.
Okay.
For at least 6 months. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay.
Any further questions? Discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor of elevating Richard Centeno to full board membership, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. And moving on, our second recommendation this evening is for Tina Wright. She is a previous board member and a current member of the Community Relations and Legislative Advisory Committee. Based upon an interview with our committee, we are once again recommending her for full board membership for SGPRC. Do we have any discussion questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. Do I have a motion to approve Tina for full board membership?
I'll make the motion to approve Tina joining the board.
I'll second it.
Wow. Okay. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Oh, I called a little early. Do we have any discussion on that?
Actually, you just asked for discussion, Julie.
I know I did. I thought I went out of order. All in favor of elevating Tina to board member? Say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Congratulations to both Richard and Tina. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you as board members.
Thank you very much.
And both Tina and Richard will begin board membership beginning at the January meeting. So we're glad that they're with us this evening, but also thrilled that they will be joining us as official board members in the spring. They're both individuals served by the Regional Center and also been members of committee members. Richard, by the way, just so you all know, has received an award for a very wonderful poem he wrote and he read it to us. It was just so heartwarming that I, of course, in my usual fashion, was moved to tears, just so you know. And Tina is a returning board member time ago, and we're thrilled to have them both with us. Thank you to both of them. Any other business from the Strategic Development Advisory Committee, Julie?
That concludes it for this evening. Thank you, Gigi.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have a very brief report because we do have a very packed agenda and we do have a special presentation as part of our issues forum. This is one that actually began a few months ago when Daniela and her colleagues talked about ABA services and related provision. Tonight we have a special guest that I'm going to give a brief overview, but I'm hoping that Wendy will chime in. She knows more about them than I do. So I hope that's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot. But prior to that, let me just give you a little bit of an update. As Julie briefly mentioned, we will be engaging in full strategic planning with the Regional Center, staff and board members and committee members in the spring, especially. And we do have a consulting team that will be working with us. We're very excited about that. As you know, we have a current strategic development plan. And we're going to be moving on to a new one. We can't wait to get started on that as the new year's start. Have done some advanced planning in that regard. ARCA will also have a meeting in the spring. Interestingly, they recently went through strategic planning as well. So we're doing some things in parallel. More than anything, I just want to wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season. I think back to 2020. New board president 2019, 2020, and how we navigated through COVID-19. We're still working on that. Yes, there has been some in cases, and we do have two other nasty viruses that have joined forces, both RSV and the flu. And so unfortunately, we do have some illness floating around, but I think we're certainly much better shape than we were back in 2020 prior to vaccines and other kinds of treatments associated with the COVID-19 virus. So please be healthy and safe, and happy holidays to all. We thank you so much for coming. We have a really full house, 47 people on this meeting. So we're excited about that. We'll, by the way, have a brief closed session. There was an error on the agenda, but we did announce it via public. That we are going to have a very brief closed session at the end related to the lease of the building. So just so you're aware, board members, just as a reminder, you did get a notice as well.
Easy.
What I want to move on to is our esteemed guest, Miss Susie Lee and Christine Lee, who are going to talk about ABA services. They've done a lot of research on legislation associated with that, variability in some of the challenges associated with service provision, especially as it related to insurance coverage, and that started several years ago. Wendy, would you join me in introducing them a little bit more than I have?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity for these special guests of ours to present. Susie Lee is the mother of a client of the regional center, and she is an awesome advocate for her daughter. And obviously, being the regional center client for many years, she experienced many different services. And one in particular that she wanted to share with us about today is the ABA. And so today she's here and she brought along her daughter, her older daughter, Christine Lee, who is the older sibling of our regional center client. So they're both here and they put together a very succinct, clear PowerPoint to share with us and kind of talk us through the experiences as well as the work that they have done in the research in looking at this whole system, the service delivery system of the applied behavioral analysis. So without further ado, let me have Susie and Christine to share with us their findings and what it is that they would like to kind of take upon with this issue. So Susan and Christine, are you both here? I think I saw you both.
I am. I'm right here.
Great.
And so good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Lee. I'm here to speak on behalf of my mother.
And
can everyone hear me? I just want to make sure with the mic check. Okay, great. Okay. So before I begin, I want to just quickly thank Dr. Ragusa, Gigi, sorry, old habits die hard.
And we a co-host so you can share your screen when you're ready. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Gigi and Miss Wendy Lai for their patience and also for allowing my mother and I to speak at this meeting. I believe there was also a handout available. I'm not sure if that was circulated, but I'll make sure to send that out after. But because the evening is short, I'm going to share my screen and just get right to it. Okay.
By the way, the handout is in your meeting packet as well, Christine. So they have that. Okay. And also the in PDF. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to right. Okay, can everyone see that screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to let everyone know I am speaking here tonight because I am very well aware of the privilege I have today, and that is the ability to speak up. Since my early teens, I was forced to advocate for my families, specifically my disabled sister. And I'm sure many of you can agree that disabilities can make for a hard and lonely road for families. I'm here tonight on behalf of not just my sister, but also her community. I've grown up seeing the challenges with self-advocacy, especially how it can become a fight for services. So it's interesting to be standing in front of regional centers board meeting when typically it would be very adversarial in my past experience. But with the rising rate of autism, there's even more an increased demand for ABA services. Despite there being more resources available today, recipients and families aren't necessarily equipped to advocate for change, let alone for themselves. And as Dr. Martin Luther King has once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's something that resonates really hard with me, especially for someone that is neurotypical and that actually have the means to present. And so the change I'm speaking to affects all of us. I'm sure many of you are familiar with ABA services, but for those who aren't, I'm just going to quickly go over it. So behavior therapy is a broad range of therapeutic techniques that assist individuals in improving their behaviors, whether it's reinforcing or decreasing positive actions or interactions. So on this slide, we have a variety of therapies that fall under behavior therapy, which includes applied behavior analysis, ABA, otherwise known as autism therapy. So we have cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, exposure therapy. So these are all encompassed under behavior therapy. So realistically, with ABA therapy, it is a little different. I feel like the first slide is a little deceptive. Over here, I think this actually better illustrates the relationship with ABA and behavior therapy. It does fall under behavior therapy, but there is a huge part of ABA that is almost like uncharted territory. So with ABA, one of the benefits is that it is technically, it's primarily for individuals with autism, right? It improves ADL living skills. It decreases specific challenging behaviors, behavioral problems that many autistic children have. It increases language, communication skills. But the biggest thing is that it adjusts learning techniques per the individual diagnosis. So it is very data-driven, evidence-based. It's very heavily focused on the actual individual. There isn't a cookie cutter therapy, template that a lot of these providers can fall under or follow. Excuse me. And so on this next slide with ABA, so prior to 2012, there were technically 3 ways to obtain or access ABA, either through a local school district, your regional center, or even the parents themselves having to pay out of pocket. And so this created a lot of hurdles in terms of just access for a lot of communities here, right? It increased the disparity, and it was already difficult. Back in 2012, also, autism wasn't really that well known. And so in 2012, with the rising rate, Governor Jerry Brown passed the Senate Bill 946, SB 946. And then in 2012, California fully adopted the SB 946, which mandated health plans and health insurances to provide coverage for behavioral health treatment for individuals diagnosed with autism therapy. But the issue here is that it's a win for the community at first. It allowed equitable access for communities and families to ABA services. But the whole saying that it sounds too good to be true rings even truer here. So one of the reasons why it's because of the definition of the state bill. And so I wanted to specifically go over some of the definitions. And over here on this slide, you have the behavioral health treatment. And so it basically it details what the program requires under the Health and Safety Code section 1374.73 subsection C. And it has to be prescribed by a physician or a licensed psychologist, follow a treatment plan. A treatment plan has to have measurable goals and administered by a qualified autism service provider. The routine review of the treatment plan also includes an intervention plan, specific services broken down, and then the progress and evaluation reporting. And the reason why I also outlined on this PowerPoint, bolded, underlined the autism service provider, it's because that is the second definition that was a pitfall that the legislative did not account for. So under subsection C, the terms and definitions of a qualified autism service provider is defined as follows: a person licensed as a physician, physical therapist, occupational therapist, psychologist, marriage, family therapist, and so on forth. But the second part of that definition becomes a catch-all. And you see it as a person, entity, or group that is certified by a national entity, such as Behavior Analyst Certification Board, BACB, that is accredited by a National Commission for Certifying Agencies. One who designs, supervises, provides treatment for pervasive developmental disorders or autism, provided that the services are within the experience and competence of the person, entity, or group that is nationally certified. So here, the definition, this catch-all definition is probably the most problematic of the state bill. The definition itself is not only just vague and over-inclusive, but it completely relies on a national entity such as the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. Further, the definition technically allows an unqualified professional to treat, serve, interact with patients as long as they are supervised. And again, supervision relies on how diligent the company or the organization is. So on the next slide, I have a quick overview of how ABA is currently structured, right? So we have the ABA certification, which will actually say a qualified autism service provider. And we have several different types of professionals that fall under this definition. We have a behavior technician, a registered behavior technician, a board certified assistant behavior analysis, board certified behavior analyst, and then a board certified behavior analyst doctor. And so all these different positions, they aren't very streamlined. For an example, for BTs and RBTs, they don't really require even a college degree. I think at minimum, it's a high school degree, a high school diploma. and they require supervision. In our own personal experience, I've worked with BTs and RBTs, and I was hoping that there would be supervision because that's what the code requires. That's what their organization requires, but I don't really see a lot of the supervision happening. So going on to the next one. So with, again, SB 946 was essentially a win, especially given the equitable access for our communities. But with the increased need and now demand for ABA services, it's become basic, purely economics. With an increase in demand comes an increase in supply. Unfortunately, things have moved too fast. Obviously, when there is a need, there are always going to be individuals and especially companies that will try to meet that. And again, economics are in play here. So with the rise of private equity companies and sole proprietorships, we're now faced with the rippling effects of profit margins, which has basically resulted in a lack of diversity in training approaches, high turnover rates in service providers, challenging inconsistencies in service provisions, and variability in structure of services. And sadly, the lack of infrastructure and accountability has come at the expense of our vulnerable communities, many of whom are recipients of regional center. And so when I go into the lack of accountability, it's resulted in many of these bullets that I've provided on the screen. And this also is reflected in my own personal experience, my mother's personal experience with a lot of these ABA companies. So some of these services would be terminated prematurely. There's a lack of sensitivity to recipients and families, especially with cultural backgrounds or even social backgrounds. There's also variability in providers scheduling of the sessions, right? Which has resulted in a lot of inconsistencies, which defeats the purpose of ABA services. As we all know, with autistic children, they thrive on consistency. And given the lack of consistency in the scheduling and in the treatment, it's actually been very detrimental to a lot of these students. There's also a concern over some providers actually withholding sessions out of retaliation. There are inconsistencies in documentation, which is very concerning given the fact that many of these companies bill to insurance companies. There are also concerns over potential violation of ethical codes. And the BACB relies heavily on ethical code. They actually have an entire section in their organization that basically enumerates all the ethical codes that their technicians, their therapists, anyone who they certify need to follow. And so that being said, in the last two bullets, the variability and oversight and the limit to the grievance appellate process, that is exactly why Susie and I are here. So currently, this is basically like an overview infrastructure of how you can file a complaint, right? And so I've already gone over the different qualified autism service providers right here. And they're usually overseen by 2 to 3 different channels, right? So we technically have 2 to 3 ways to file a complaint. We have the BCBA, which is a Behavior Analyst Certification Board based in Colorado, a BICC, Behavior Intervention Certification Council, which is based in Illinois. And then we also have state, which is just the additional state licensure wherever that organization is based. So for example, the ABA companies that we have in California, the additional state licensure would be California. And one of the issues here too, before I even move towards the next one, I wanted to kind of give a breakdown about how you can file a complaint in these avenues. With the BCBA, you can only file online. The BCBA decisions are final. There is no appeal process. There's also no direct response to grievances. Whereas with the BICC, they focus primarily on the applicant's certification process. They rarely review complaints about the certification, curriculum, or testing, and they don't address any sort of professional misconduct post-certification. Now with the state regulation, currently most states actually do require an extra regulatory requirement for ABA services provider and professionals. However, right now, there are some states in our country that don't require the additional state regulation. And that is California, Idaho, New Mexico, Colorado, Nebraska, Minnesota, Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, and Maine. And so it's surprising that California, of all states, don't require an additional licensure, especially given the fact that many of even our nail technicians, estheticians are required to undergo heavy licensing and regulations, right? But ABA providers don't need to do that. They don't have any sort of oversight or accountability. And so moving on to my next slide right here. Again, the legislator must have been aware of the pitfalls that I had just talked about, because a couple years ago, we had an assemblyman actually introduce the Assembly Bill 1715, which is an additional state licensure for behavior analysts. It would actually require state board oversight to regulate practices, provide additional protections for individuals served in California, consumers in California, and then finally enact the Behavior Analyst Act, which would provide California Board of Psychology the power to regulate ABA professionals. Now, AB 1715 was initially slated to take effect in January 2022. However, it was actually withdrawn. And sadly, it was withdrawn due to a lot of oppositions and opposing campaigns that were heavily funded by a lot of these ABA organizations and companies. And they were premised on a lot of issues that claimed that it would lead to significant shortages of ABA providers, that it would create like an influx or drive up costs for the organizations and companies. And a lot of these claims were actually unfounded and deceptive and misleading. They claim that the BACB would have a monopoly on this, and that's false, because if you look at the actual language of AB 1715, it only says that the state would be working with the BACB and trying to create a better regulation system, right? And many of these ABA companies right now, and I actually encourage everyone that's attending this presentation to look up some of the ABA companies that you've worked with in the past. Just Google them, and many of them, if you look up their scores on the Indeed website, a lot of their own employees are unhappy because of the lack of management and training. A quick review shows that many of these employees emphasize on hostile work environment, lack of management, inconsistent hours. There's been articles also that have become more prevalent lately, and especially in the last couple of years, where some of these technicians and therapists don't feel comfortable with how the ABA companies are run because it doesn't actually fall under the structure of what ABA services are supposed to provide, such as individualized therapy services. Instead, they expect therapists to kind of follow a cookie cutter therapy framework. Now, the opposition clearly had every reason to fear AB 1715 because the Behavior Analyst Act would actually subject their professionals to higher standards, regulations, disciplinary action, and examinations to ensure competency and sustainability. Sorry, that was a little premature. So AB 1715 today, so again, like I said, it actually never ended up being passed because it was ultimately withdrawn. And so moving forward, and this is exactly why my mother and I are here before everyone, is that in order for us to even try to introduce a new or revised bill, we need to gain some traction, right? And so this is kind of an overview of what the legislative process requires. And it's to introduce this idea, this spirit of deliberate uniform regulatory responsibility for these qualified autism service providers, right? To basically reiterate the importance, to basically echo the needs of AB 1715. And so in order to do that, we're asking to work together with other advocacy groups to seek more oversight and regulation over these ABA service professionals. And once all this kind of gains a little more track, then we would actually have an assembly member or a senator send this idea to the legislative council, where the idea is then drafted into a bill. And so the bill is then introduced to the Assembly or the Senate, dependent upon which legislator is championing the cause, right? So currently, right now, where we stand, our only recourse right now is the top two levels right here. And that's just basically to start speaking up and to start sharing ideas, right? And it's been very hard having to watch my mother and having to watch my sister undergo a lot of mistreatment and having to navigate that process. Speaking from my own personal experience, I've worked on many appeals, and it's not just appeals with regional center decisions. It's also the appeals with the ABA providers, working on filing a complaint to ensure that, again, someone isn't being mistreated. I am aware that I actually have the means and the ability to assist my mother. I know a lot of families out there don't have those means. And so I implore everyone to take note of this and take this very serious. Because I can't even imagine the families that either don't speak English or don't even have the financial or the time to even file a complaint, right? Or to even speak up or speak back. And so this is why I'm here. It's for those kind of communities. And finally, again, it's just to overcome these hurdles, right? It doesn't have to be a lonely journey. And I'm sure many parents of disabled children can agree that it always feels lonely and it always feels hard. And as Regional Center has consistently reminded our community by providing so much resources for us, they remind us that it doesn't have to be a lonely road, right? And so this is why my mother and I are here. One of the ways that we can start gaining some traction is educate, write to your senator and your representative to change the licensing process, to address the need for additional regulations. Continue discussing and appealing to governmental agencies, such as the Department of Developmental Services and the United States California Department of Health and Human Services. Write to the insurance commissioner to assist changing the ABA service delivery system. Share your stories, share your resources. I know I said a lot today. I know there's been a lot of information. I am more than happy to share additional information. Please stay in touch. I listed my email address and I would have listed my phone number, but I don't think that's appropriate. And I just want to thank everyone for even giving my mother and I the opportunity to speak in front of you. It's been really difficult having to watch my mother go through this, and I'm just hoping that this kind of conversation, it will actually start not even just like a conversation. I'm hoping it will start a discussion. So, and also, I'm sorry if I've gone way over time. I know I've said a lot, but I do want to give the floor to the one woman that actually gave me everything and is the reason why I'm standing in front of you. And I'd like to introduce my mother, Susie Lee.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Susie. Thank you so much, Christine. It was wonderful to have you with us this evening, and thank you for your hard work and research. And again, the Issues Forum is designed for a discussion. So we started it a couple months ago and we want to keep going. So appreciate your time and Susie's, and thank you, Wendy, for bringing them forward as well.
Absolutely. And thank you, Christine, for so eloquently and succinctly put together this presentation to voice many parents' irritation, frustration, and inability to express. So thank you so much.
Hey, Ms. Lai, I just wanted to quickly let my mother just share a few words, and then everyone can have their evening. Okay?
Sure.
I just want to let you know where the privilege. I have the support from my family and have a daughter that helps me.
Wait, Mom, I'm sorry. I think you cut out. Can you start all over again?
I'm sorry. I am aware of the privilege I have, and I have the support from my family and have a daughter that helps me. I have the resources that not every parent has. My heart goes out to the family that do not have the resources, considering the traumatic experience that I went through during my life. lifetime, I do not want any parent to go through the experience that I or my family went through.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Elizabeth and Susan, for your comments in the chat. They're very, very important and helpful as well. I appreciate it. Thank you all. Great. And we will keep having issues forums each month. So we started them a couple months ago. The months that we have training, we won't be having an issues forum, but we will be having issues forums on other months. So appreciate all of that. Susan, your comment especially, given that you wear a couple of hats, right? Or probably Great. Okay. So
this is Mary. I was going to tell you that I'm an advocate for a client here.
Great.
So she cannot speak, and she's not able to ambulate or anything. So I just want to tell you I'm glad to be back with Sherry and everyone. And I am going to be going through some surgery, but I'll still do Zoom with you.
We're glad you're going to be with us, and apologies that you have to have that happen to you, Mary, but we're glad you're with us. And also thrilled to see Sherry helping you as she did when we were face to face. So welcome back, Sherry, as well. See your hand in the corner.
Hello.
All right.
Great. All right, terrific. Thank you so much. We do have a packed agenda, and it's 8:30, and we don't want to keep anybody too much longer. So we're going to move on to the executive director. Jesse, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gigi. Good evening, board. And as I transition, thank you, Susie, and thank you, Christine, for your presentation. On behalf of the Regional Center, I just want to reinforce our values and commitment to hearing those real issues, those challenges, and working together as a community. So thank you very much. Jose, may I share my screen? Do I have access? I'll share my report. I think it works. There we go.
I've made you co-host.
Thank you, Erica. Let's see if I get the right document up here. Can everybody see my report okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you make it a little larger because we only see the title?
Absolutely. Let me try.
There you go.
Is that too big now?
It's too big. That's
Okay.
right.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can scroll down it. That'll work fine.
Okay. All right, everybody. I'll try to keep it streamlined and I'll try to watch out for questions that come in as well. So I'm going to start off with some state and local updates. This is just a reminder, the state of emergency that Governor Newsom issued is set to expire and sunset on February 28th, 2023. And the reason for that date is to make sure we get through the holidays, get through January, and allow both local and state entities to get prepared for the transition back into our new way of working and living without that state of emergency, which allowed for a lot of flexibilities for our service system. We're still going to have flexibilities from the department. There's still authorities that we can get from the Department for Health and Safety, but it's not at the same level of flexibilities with that state of emergency in place. So we're tracking it. The department is still moving forward at the state level with that state of emergency ending. So I just want to remind everybody there. Did anybody have any questions on the side yet? Okay, I saw Susan, you come off mute, so I'm trying to track. Okay, Little Hoover Commission. I know we talked about Little Hoover Commission. The last hearing was held on Thursday, December 8th. It was with Aaron Crothers, Executive Director. I know the board got an update on that, so I won't spend too much time, but do know that the hearings are over. That's one piece of it. The next piece is very focused on what's going to occur with all of the feedback, all of their good recommendations that people brought forward on how to improve our service system. And that's going to result in recommendations. That's going to result in some solutions that have been brought forward. And that report is going to be really critical because that report is going to go in front of our legislators, senators, assembly members of our service system and the importance of our service system. And we could see that report mean some changes for our system, could be some regional center activities that we have to do. So it's too soon to tell, but it is really critical. So as that comes in, that'll be made available. It'll be made public. So we're just tracking for that. There's no date for that yet, but I just want to reassure people that it's not just the hearings, it's the hearings that's feeding into a report for our system at large. Very focused on service access, equity, and disparities, and how do we improve services and supports for families. 988, I mentioned this in our last board meeting that we had. 988 is available, a 3-digit code that doesn't fully replace. You can still dial 800-273-TALK, which is the National Suicide Hotline. 988 was designated in July 16th of this year to help get people more timely services to crisis intervention. It's a nationwide implementation. It's fantastic. They try to get more people to remember 988, just like 911 or 211. And the board asked in our last meeting to have that updated to our website. It's been updated. Thank you, Yvonne, if you're here. So we have that as a resource, especially during the holidays as well. So I do want to remind everybody that we're excited for the holidays. It's a lot of cheer, gratitude, time for family, friends, reflecting. For some individuals, this is a rough time of year for individuals. And so we want to make sure both personally and professionally, we're checking in on everybody around us, making sure that people are doing okay, because there might be some families that situations, friends, loved ones that look different due to COVID-19 and due to situations. So we always want to be mindful of both. We want to acknowledge the holiday spirit. We also want to make sure that we're checking in. So it's just a resource just for everybody to be aware of, to talk about. That's okay if somebody needs to reach out. Doesn't have to be the suicide hotline. It can be regional center. It can be friends, but just making sure people are staying connected. And I always like to make space for these kind of conversations during the holidays. It's never too much to talk about, to have those pieces there so people are supported during the holidays. On that same line of thinking, I want to give credit to Trisha Vanucci, our Associate Director, and Daniela, who brought forward this great resource. In addition, this has been publicized at our community meetings on a weekly basis. And this is an additional support line. It's a 188 number, not as easy as the 988, but we'll see. This might be on our website already. I'll double check, or it might be coming. But what this is, it's a partnership between the ARC and Stony Brook University, the School of Social Welfare, that offers a telehealth support for individuals that have intellectual and or developmental disabilities, including their families, including support professionals that need extra supports. And it's operated by graduate students being supervised within that School of Social Welfare that offers a wide range of service support. So this is another resource, might be more specialized and more tailored for our community, but just another option that we wanted to share with everybody here. And some legislative information. This first bill, I like to include legislative activities that ARC is tracking at a statewide level. AB 1331, this was vetoed, but still important because we were tracking this, to have through the county mental health system, to have a statewide director of crisis services. So it's going to require the director at the state level to appoint a full-time statewide director of crisis services, which there was a lot of momentum in the community because it's aligned with all the activities that we've been talking about for interactions with law enforcement, mental health. And unfortunately that got vetoed. So it could come back later. I don't know why it got vetoed. So that's not moving forward at this time, but that is being tracked in the community at large. So you will see me share bills that are moving forward that may have been chaptered, that are still being reviewed, or when they get vetoed, just so I want you to be aware of those bigger legislative things that people are tracking as well. The other one I'm sharing with you is related to AB 371. All these letters and numbers, really what that means is looking at shared mobility devices and insurance tracking. And this is an interesting one. This is a bill that would require a shared mobility service provider to actually affix or place on each device a tactile sign containing erased characters or that's accompanying Braille as specified to identify the device for the purpose of reporting illegal or negligent activity. So you're seeing more oversight, more protections, both from an insurance perspective, if something's lost or stolen, really aimed to protect their mobility devices and that for that as well. These other two are just review. I've already reviewed these, so I won't go into detail, but they are in the report. Erica will upload this into the file so everybody has it. But it's just the same updates on conservatorship. Since there's so much movement at the state level around conservatorships, regional centers are tracking very heavily anybody who's conserved under conservatorship, tracking in a portal monthly of updates. And that's also in our contract with the department to make sure that we're keeping close oversight. And the last one for legislative is the age of disability onset, where there was a lot of motion and traction to get the threshold raised from 18 to 22 years of age for our service system to qualify for services. That was vetoed by the governor. So, but that might come back again. It's gotten traction a few times now. And I learned some other states do 22 years old in other states. I did research on that. So, but we're still with our system evidence prior to the 18th birthday. And law enforcement, lots of movement there between law enforcement and protecting individuals that we serve. So that's there. Couple things for directives at the state level. You'll see those extensions of waivers, modifications. They've been flowing for the past 2 years routinely from the department, because the department only has the authority to approve in certain timeframes depending on the type of directive or extension that's occurring. And the most recent one we got is up till December 22. We'll see them again for January, I anticipate, and then February. I don't anticipate at least as many extensions once that state of emergency has ended. We're going to see a reduction there. So this is going to be really critical as we do our weekly meetings with providers and families, community members. We're updating which ones are getting extended, which ones are getting modified or not, because I think people have just been looking at them so routinely for every month, like a rollover almost, that now it's going to be very telling, I think, once that state of emergency is lifted. And these go directly on our website, by the way. Okay, so you can access that there. I won't spend too much time on this. This is nothing significantly new, but we do have on our website under directives for both individuals and families served and service providers, a nice summary of Senate Bill 188, which includes significant legislative changes to our system. And they put nice summaries in there and actions. So we reviewed it really routinely in our community meetings as these come up. So we hit all of the areas, but if you have an interest in kind of what occurred last fiscal year, there's a good summary in there that I think they did a really nice job. And it's very easy to read through as well. Just a reminder. I'm very excited. You get fresh new information hot off the press as of yesterday. Regional centers have officially gotten our first 2 directives on regional center performance measures. And the first 2 directives that came out are both related to early start, early intervention, which is fabulous. And you'll see, I just did some highlight just to do this summary here. You'll find them on our website shortly. We're going to get those uploaded and share at our next meeting when we reconvene in January. But the first part, high level, if I had to summarize what I'm reading, what the department is expecting, is looking at getting some good baseline data. So the first regional center performance measure, when I say a regional center performance measure, what that means is it's voluntary for regional centers to participate, which San Gabe will, because if we achieve those outcomes that's identified, we can get incentive money, operation. It means recruiting, means positions, means projects for us as a center for meeting or exceeding those thresholds. So when you're looking at some of these performance measures, they're very structured around getting good data. First one is we have until April 1st, 2023 to submit a child find plan. We have to specify how we're going to do outreach, how we're going to do child find, especially in underserved areas, and all the framework within this plan that we have to submit. So it's very comprehensive. So we'll share that. We'll be very transparent with that child find plan and share it with our community, with our board on that, and what types of county or what types of agencies will work, how we're going to prioritize those activities and those sources, referral sources. Who are those? The spreadsheet is very specific. So it's got to be done very thoughtfully. And that's the reason why, in my opinion, the department's giving us some time till April to get it meaningfully completed for that. So once we submit that, it'll be part of the performance measure. And then they're also going to, the department put us on notice that they're going to publish data on children birth through age 1 and birth through age 2 who've been determined for early start services, who have an individualized family service plan, looking at specific data about those kids in early intervention, those infants and toddlers, about their language, their race, their ethnicity, and the actual number, because in order to meet or exceed a threshold, the department's going to be looking at data from each of the regional centers so they know if we're performing and doing comprehensive, meaningful child find, not just dropping off a brochure or dropping off a packet. It's really getting engaged in how we're going to do that in order to be incentives, because these funds will have oversight. When there's funds given for these types of activities, you got to have data to support that it's working. So just some background that you'll see there for early start. And the other one is also related to early start, which is timely access to early intervention services. So it's letting us know that we're going to be pulling data from our early start reports, which are a requirement in early intervention. Gives us data developmentally about the individual that's in early intervention. And it's compiles a lot of data diagnostically, age-wise, developmentally. So it's just letting us know where that data is going to be pulled, and then letting us know that the department is going to provide us with a draft set of data that they pulled from us. We're going to have an opportunity to review, see if it's accurate data integrity prior to our thresholds and our benchmarks getting memorialized for the regional center. So that's kind of high level, but it's exciting. We're finally seeing these performance measures roll out. There's a lot more activities coming, not just early start. It's going to be related to employment. Satisfaction will be one, how satisfied are families with regional center services. So you'll see a lot more rolling out. Just know, I want the board to be aware, internally, we're creating a matrix, and that means it's a spreadsheet. Every time we get a new directive or measure rolled out to the regional center, we're identifying the due date, the point of person who is responsible for that activity, if there's a communication strategy, training that's needed, just so we can monitor all of the moving pieces, because there's a lot of moving parts from the department. So that's how we'll be managing the workflow around some of these activities. I might be running over my time, so I'm going to keep moving here. Service access and equity grants, they've been submitted. We're waiting to hear back on who's been awarded and who will submit those. Regional centers have the opportunity to review, provide feedback, and the departments should be rendering decisions hopefully soon, January, February. Sometimes that does get extended. And I'm going to close us out with some San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center specific data. Excuse me. As of November 30th, San Gabe Pomona Regional Center had 419 authorized positions. This includes 401 full-time employees with 18 vacancies. And just a comment, you probably see Tim Travis here this evening, rejoined San Gabe from the department, went to the department for a while, and is back as the Associate Director of Community Services working for Lucina. So welcome back, Tim. I actually wrote that in the notes here, I just saw that. So warm welcome. And then just a high level snapshot for January, excuse me, everybody. What happens when I talk so much? Projected recruitment for January 2023. We're going to be releasing some positions. We're going to be very active in recruitment for this upcoming rest of the fiscal year. So we're looking at our IT department, our information technology, making sure we have the technology supports needed to support our workforce. We're looking at an early start manager. We're growing there, which makes sense because we're reducing those caseloads, bringing on significant number of staff. So we need management to support those teams. We're looking at a nurse consultant, a mental health specialist, a board certified behavior analyst. I know we were talking about BCBAs this evening, a part-time position. In addition to that, 2 admission coordinators, which is very exciting. That's our entry point into our system. So admissions is also what's commonly known as intake and eligibility. That's what that's referring there to, helping people get through our intake process. And then service coordinators as well. That's every month. I just pulled out some of the specialized positions for everybody so you can see how we're thinking about recruiting. And then that specialized position won the 25, which there's 8 or 9 different criterias that qualify for that very specialized caseload that is time limited. As of November 30th, we served 15,606 individuals. You have some data here in the report just around how many individuals came through our intake department, admissions department, where we received 191 new referrals. Large number of people came in the month of November. Out of 191, 168 were made eligible, very large number. And then for Lanterman, we received 36 new referrals, 54 were eligible. The reason why you see that number higher is because from previous months, those individuals are becoming made eligible as well. So that's why there's a little bit higher number there. You're like, well, how is 54 larger than 36 from previous months through that process? So we did some research there. And then we had individuals exiting early intervention at 341 went on to Lanterman and 1 under the provisional eligibility program. I think this is my last page. Try to be mindful of time, everybody. SDP, we currently have 96 as of November 30th. You heard 97 this evening, earlier and also in the previous meeting because somebody joined after December 1st. But as of November 30th, I keep the data clean for the purposes of reporting. That's why it says 96. We're continuing our activities for meet and greets. And just a reminder that we still have $93,152.28 to help assist with the implementation. That money has not been allocated yet. That means the regional center team will be working with the committee to determine how to use those funds. We still have time, so that's okay, but we want to get those funds, figuring out how we're going to be utilizing them prior to the end of the fiscal year. Disability Voices United hosted a conference on Friday, December 2nd. We had regional center staff there. I was an invited panelist speaker in one of the breakout groups on disparities. So I got to represent San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center's perspective around addressing self-determination, making sure it's equitable in terms of program enrollment. So that was a really nice event, widely attended. It looked like there was hundreds of people that attended. Great platform for networking for self-determination. And just a quick reminder for people, State Council is sending out surveys to individuals enrolled in self-determination and to individuals that were interested in self-determination prior to it going live, trying to see how the program's working. What are the successes? What are the barriers? What are the challenges? So if you're in SDP or know people in SDP, they could be getting a survey. We will not get it at regional center. It's not coming to us. It's going directly from State Council to participants in the program. So just wanted to give an update there to the board. And my last 3 items, foster grandparent, senior companion program. Just want to recognize their holiday event they had today at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley. They had a great event that was hosted and a bus. It was a large team, got all the volunteers that wasn't able to drive or go, helped transport individuals from Pomona all the way to Simi Valley to participate. And for the volunteers, they did some really fantastic work. I got to meet with both of our representatives for the foster grandparent and senior companion program. And it's truly impressive, the work that they're doing. So I wanted to extend our gratitude and appreciation on behalf of the Regional Center for the program, for all the volunteers, for all the great work that they do. And holidays, we've mentioned holidays in our weekly meetings. Our weekly meetings are continuing. We're getting ready for 2023. Due to our holiday schedule, we will reconvene our weekly meetings the first week of January 9th for our vendor meeting, January 10th for community meetings. And if you've been at the community meetings with me, I've been telling our community, if anything urgent comes out from the state, anything from public health, we have our full team ready to communicate through Constant Contact. Did I get that right, Yvonne, the name this evening? Our newsletter out to the community and our website, just so that way there's no gap in information when we're not meeting. So we'll be communicating that out. I don't anticipate anything urgent, but just in case, you'll have full access to information. And in the event we needed to reconvene and host a meeting, we can pull people together if that were to happen. So we're just thinking a couple steps ahead during the holiday season if that's needed. And I mentioned this earlier, just want to remind everybody, we are going to remain open during the holidays. And those 4 observed holidays, we'll still have access to our 24/7 hotline after hours, which is a requirement for every regional center as part of our contract with the state to be available 24/7, even holidays for our community. So that is my report. I do have to, Gigi mentioned earlier, our closed session. I have a time-sensitive need for closed session this evening on a leasing update for the community. And so that was my last item. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jesse. We've had a long meeting this evening, but we had lots to cover. It's time for announcements. I want to make an announcement that is, if you or you know somebody who has some food insecurities, there are many resources for you. I'm just mentioning one in the chat. I have the phone number for the Food Bank of Southern California, 562-435-3577. They provide food on average 250,000 nutritious meals in the county of Los Angeles. They're a member of the nation's emergency food assistance program. I've done some volunteering with them for quite some time, and they serve the entire county of Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, tomorrow they will be collaborating with Telemundo and NBC from 10 to noon in Long Beach. And if you know of people who have food insecurity, please reach out, provide that phone number for them. It's free and it's really nutritious food. And there's other resources, I think Yvonne periodically puts them on the website. So please make sure people are aware of those things. I want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday season and take care of one another. Be safe and well. And we will see you, as NASA says, on the flip side in January 2023. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a pleasant evening and holiday.